And okay, so today, interesting, it wasn't going to be this isn't what I was necessarily going to talk about, but over the last couple days, I read a couple journals. One I read a few weeks ago when I did a blog post on it. So let's just do this real quick. Digestion Coach.com, just to show. So digestioncoach.com blog, scrolling back. This post right here, the microbiome, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic health. So I what stuck out at me, I read a journal, I wrote a post, um, and it takes into account a how the body. No, this is a good post, but it takes into account. Let me get the microbiome comment very bit. This one right here. Uh, Pantothenate, which is the precursor to vitamin B5, microbiome mediated regulation and strategies to combat sugar cravings. It related to the diabetes. I read it at something else, and then I wrote the one on diabetes later. So this particular bacteria, uh, Bacteroides vulgatus, and how it relates to sugar cravings and the GLP-1, which is really big now with Ozempic. And so I wrote this post, but it stuck in the back of my mind. And so then I read a post on, let's just scroll to the top, a journal article, ketogenic diet suppresses colorectal cancer through gut microbiome. So anything that comes up gut microbiome, I want to read it. So let's scroll down to the picture here. And so I'm looking at the names of the bacteria, and this is Bacteroides. So I'm thinking, okay, I wrote a post on that, a lot of Bacteroides. Then I read another journal, and it's on omega-3 fatty acid supplementation reversed pro-inflammatory profile, uh, displaying a significant anti-inflammatory effect, reduces particular subtypes of inflammatory lymphocytes, and it helps to basically reverse insulin resistance in non-obese mice. I'm sure with other things it would assist in obese people, but this one was specifically non-obese mice. So the key was, as I thought, all right, ketogenic diet. I saw the interleukins 17s, the Th17 inflammatory cell. It pops up here in the ketogenic diet. So I did a little research and I wanted to see, okay, what relationship does the Bacteroides have in regulating this inflammatory cell? So then I did some research. So we'll start here. This is the bacteria that creates, that inhibits the sugar craving. So if we eat, so we're going to pull this all together. We got a ketogenic diet. We got a particular bacterial strain. We have omega-3 fatty acids from seafood. What's the relationship? Okay. Evolutionary biology, we were more in ketosis than we weren't in ketosis. Our first cultivated protein was seafood. Almost all mechanisms of the body, well, all cells of the body have DHA incorporated in them. We do not function well in in evolving as an embryo into a fully viable baby without proper levels of DHA. The neurological development is off, so there's more prone to ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, things like that in a child whose mother is not sufficient in omega-3s, EPA, DHA. So this particular bacteria thrives on resistant starch, primarily lentils. So these are journals: lentils, green pea, resistant starch. So a plantain is more of a resistant starch than a banana. An unripe banana is more of a resistant starch. A cooked and cooled potato or rice is more of a resistant starch. So these things of eating leftovers or unripened foods would possess more resistant starches. Lentils and garbanzo beans have been around since the beginning of time, thousands of years. So again, based on evolutionary biology, short-term evolutionary biology, a ketogenic diet, lentil, garbanzo bean, cooked and cooled things, leftovers, unripened things, and seafoods promoted, and we'll get into it deeper, promoted anti-inflammatory presentations in the body, reducing the chances of cancer and inflammation. So inflammation is the genesis of every disease. So if you reduce inflammation, you're lowering your risk of the development of any disease, and then cancer as well. So the things that inhibit this particular bacteria is a modern day diet. A high fat, high carbohydrate, simple carbohydrate sugar diet inhibits the growth of these bacteria. A diet of fiber, as well as animal protein, and synergistically fermented foods. So these bacteria feel safer when there's an abundance of lactobacillus, lactate producing bacteria. So the consumption of fermented foods produces a lower pH, a more beneficial environment. These are anaerobic bacteria, so they don't need any oxygen to survive. So they're in a very oxygen poor environment, acidic environment. They like the lactofermented bacteria around them, or bacteria that metabolize lactofermented foods. So what did we do again based on evolutionary biology? We would pick an abundance of things, or we would hunt, and everything we ate, or the majority of everything we ate after day 2 or 3, was beginning to ferment. So our body is more used to fasting than feeding. It is more used to fermentation than not fermentation. It's more used to seafood than just about any other protein. It has adapted over time to the raffinose, stachyose, verbascose sugars that are found in lentil, green pea, and garbanzo bean. And so we look back and we go, there was very little cancer, there's very little autoimmune disease, there's very little chronic disease. What changed around the 60s was a move, accidentally or purposefully, depending on if you're looking at business or just convenience for us or whatever. We moved towards a diet of higher sugar, higher fat diet, and away from because of grocery stores and refrigeration, coming into the 50s. So we moved away from local markets, cooking fresh, going to your market every day, getting the foods you were going to eat that particular day, um, is how we ate. And then we ate to store-bought things, processed things, a higher fat, higher sugar diet. And then we moved, probably I bet if I did a search, we probably were more in ketosis accidentally due to uh, caloric deficiency pre 1960 than we were in an abundance of calorie. So we were probably more in ketosis than we are today. And we were probably had more of these bacterias in us than we do today. So I'm going to work on this document and clean it up a little bit. It's very fact uh, riddled, and I just need to make it a little simpler. But basically, one of the biggies is that a fiber rich diet, the precursor to vitamin B5 that the bacteria produces inhibits sugar cravings. So if we're eating a high fiber diet, we crave sugar less. So again, we would be more into a ketogenic style diet because we're eating less carbohydrates and sugar. In order to get that diet, you have to consume more fibers and resistant starches and oligosaccharide sugars like inulin that the bacteria likes. So it's a healthier diet to begin with. And then that uh, reduces the level of these Th17 uh, inflammatory cells. And by doing that, we naturally produce more interleukin 10, which is then the opposite, um, which is anti-inflammatory. So our body is just better off. All right. Then to go over the ketogenic diet, we got some egg, looks like there's some peanut, nuts, cheese, egg. Mine will be more of the omega-3 because it'll be the next slide. So this ketogenic diet increases the level of stearate in the gut, which reduces this Th17 immune cell, reduces inflammation in the colon, and reduces the chance of colon cancer as well as other uh, inflammatory diseases of the bowel, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, things like that. And we know just from anecdotal evidence of people following carnivore diet for the treatment of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, people are getting a huge benefit, probably not because they're on the carnivore diet, but I bet if they tested, being that they're not consuming carbohydrate, they're probably getting into a low level of ketosis and they're making a higher level of stearic acid, or just the lack of other foodstuffs. The animal proteins are increasing the stearic acid. So a ketogenic diet, again, would have been something that we were probably more in than not due to our diet, and pre 1950, let's say, less abundant sugar. There was not the cakes and the candies. Those were very special, treats, and people weren't having a store that you could just go into, a donut store and a cake store and a cookie store and an ice cream store and gas station mini marts that has the amount of stuff that we have in it today. So we're really consuming a lot of simple carbohydrate and not as much whole food. So this is a neat thing. Not that a person would have to necessarily live their life in ketosis, but let's say a person had a colonoscopy and there were polyps, there's inflammation, there's colorectal cancer predisposition in a family, then a nutritional ketogenic diet just based on eliminating simple carbohydrate as a protein, animal protein dominant and a healthy fat dominant diet would benefit that person. So that ties in. And then this slide was, and the dose is low. They were giving these little mice 2 grams per kilogram. So basically, it made out to 540 grams of EPA and 100 milligrams of uh, DHA 3 times a week. I would administer a little bit more. The most and I would switch the ratio. The most I give people would be 2,000 DHA, 500 EPA. On average, it's 1,000 DHA, 500 EPA. But the omega-3, after 8 weeks of supplementation, this is just 3 times a week, reduced fasting glucose and insulin, reduced C-reactive protein, total cholesterol, LDLs, and triglycerides. Only the administration of omega-3 fatty acids. Now, combine through my past Patreons, lentils lowers triglycerides, LDLs, C-reactive protein, fasting glucose, insulin. It isn't the lentil, it's the lentil feeding the Bacteroides. It's the microbiome really doing the work. And releasing GLP-1, and you're not eating. There's all of these roundabout feedback loops that's occurring. So we're Treg cells are very medicinal. Interleukin-10 is a great compound. So we're reducing the IL-17s, increasing IL-10s. We are reducing all of the inflammatory cytokines, interferon, gamma, tissue necrosis factor alpha, interleukin-17, and we're reducing all of those. So that's systemic inflammation right here. And then we are increasing interleukin-10, which is, again, an incredible compound just for fish oil. So I know this is all really quick, but let's just kind of pull it together. Following a diet that is a ketogenic style diet or a low glycemic index diet that is predominantly made up of healthy fats, aged cheeses, fermented dairy, fermented pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, and lentil, garbanzo, green pea, onion, garlic, spices, seafood. Grass-fed beef has omega-3, a little alpha-linolenic acid. It's an omega-3, and the body can make some DHA, not efficient, but it can make some EPA DHA. So high quality. Let's say a person's gonna, wants to pull all this together on a diet. It'd be pasture-raised organic eggs, wild-caught oily cold water seafood, grass-fed animal protein, Greek yogurt, sauerkraut, dill pickles, kimchi, kefir, aged, and the longer the age, the better. Parmesan Reggiano, Romano, Vermont sharp aged cheddar cheese, avocado, olive. All of these would be low glycemic. A person would potentially be in ketosis. So my diet now is pretty much this diet. I am in ketosis and I'm consuming probably 200, 250 grams of Greek yogurt a day, 300 grams of 2 eggs, and maybe 250 grams of uh, animal protein, and a cup of lentil per day. And with that, and maybe some hot sauce. With that, I'm in ketosis. So it's a lot of food and still being in ketosis because there's no fruit, there's no additional sugar, there's no uh, starches. The only starch equivalent would be the lentil. And so the body then is reducing inflammatory compounds. So this could even be used for any condition that's an inflammatory based condition. Osteoarthritis, every autoimmune disease, cancers. We would probably go more strict. We'd probably really try to be in ketosis and uh, lower the amount of lentil or garbanzo to make sure we were in some moderate ketosis, or have to spend the money and buy beta hydroxybutyrate. They're called exogenous ketones, little drinks that you would drink, and it's just beta hydroxybutyrate to just bump up the ketones. That may help, or just reduce anything that could potentially convert to sugar. That would be if it was a cancer patient, or let's say an Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, something severe, something where you want to mount a super aggressive protocol. But just for everyday living, I'm 160 pounds. I'm trying to get 150 grams of protein. It's basically 2, 3 eggs and 100 grams of Greek yogurt, and the other two meals are going to be 150 grams of animal protein and 100 grams of Greek yogurt, and throughout the day, a total of a cup of just lentils with turmeric and cumin and coriander and chili and paprika and various spices in there, and that's and exercising daily, and then you could get into ketosis, lowering your blood sugar, decreasing insulin resistance, and on as a side, lowering insulin resistance, lowering inflammation, polycystic ovary disease for females. This would be something that would benefit them. People that genetically have elevated lipoprotein A, kind of a genetic predisposition to have just a bad fat in their blood, change the fatty acid profile to more lipoprotein A, less lipoprotein B, get a better fatty acid profile, and reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. There's so many benefits from following something like this. So let's say we have some vegetarians here. So if they wouldn't mind supplementing with fish oil, so supplementing with fish oil, lentil, avocado, green pea, garbanzo, egg, and then not consume the chicken or beef or pork, would get a similar benefit, but not fill the plate up with simple carb like rice, or on a consistent basis, too much rice, too much potato, macaroni, pasta, breads, things like that, because then that would just counter everything. So it would be a legume dominant diet with some cruciferous healthy fats, avocado, olives, some fermented foods, supplementing with fish oil, and I think that would be fantastic. Exercise always is mandatory, and is always sunshine is pretty much mandatory. So that ties all this in. So the neat thing is, just to bring it all together, the neat thing is, if we live a life connected to the natural world, we don't even have to think about any of this. This is all minutia. Everything I'm going over is minutia. It's all the technical stuff behind it. 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago, even 100 years ago, all we did was just live our life. We just lived our life. We ate the seafood. We ate whatever was produced seasonally. You lived in New York and you lived in your little block and you walked down to the street and you went to the Italian neighborhood, that you lived in the Jewish neighborhood, and you stayed in your neighborhood and you bought your food and you bought daily because you didn't have a refrigerator, and you were lucky if you had enough money to afford a little block of ice to put in your little refrigerator that held the block of ice, just to hold a couple things in there. And you bought daily for today's meals. It was all fresh. Lots of ferment. Olives were fermented, real fermented olives, like real fermented olives, real fermented pickles, real fermented sauerkraut. Things were truly fermented, not just put in vinegar like they're done today. So you ate seasonally. That's the proper way of eating. You would, based on your cuisine, the Italian, New York, you were eating, fava and white beans and lots of vegetables and tons of olive oil. And in the Jewish community, a lot of seafood, tons of seafood, uh, a lot of fermented foods as well. And then each ethnic group had their own amazing foods. So just living the normal life, all of this was happening automatically without anyone actually having to think about it. And people were dying of public health diseases, not chronic diseases, but public health diseases, dysentery, cholera, measles before vaccination, because of the mingling of the cultures. Everybody's coming together, coming from different countries. If we just got back to that way of living, but in a modern world with great public health, we can all live incredible lives with reduction of inflammation. The gut microbiome is super happy, but we have to get back to that way of living. So food is just one aspect. And then also the thing, I'm not going to go into a whole nother topic, but then it's all the things that encompass our lifestyle, our creature comforts of home, anything that we would have done outside 100 years ago. That's what we should be doing compared to doing it indoors. And if we do just, like to do some indoors, make sure you're always getting some of that outdoors. Okay. All right. So that is today's